Yeah, well, he certainly looks a lot slower than he has in the past. You know, you saw him that yesterday. That ball went right between his legs. You know, stuff like that certainly stands out. And you haven't really seen much of that in the past. So yeah, he's definitely not the player he once was. Is he at the end? I still think it's too early to say that. Well, let me put it to you this way: last year, he's certainly not the player that he once was. He's not a top 10 hitter that he used to be one of the best hitters in baseball, regardless of position. Last year, even though he stumbled in the second half pretty badly, he still finished among like the top, I think it was like 6 or 7 second basemen in baseball in terms of OPS. So at his position, still a pretty good player. Certainly not what he once was. Can he still be that player this year? I think it's possible. We're only 1 week in. But yeah, the guy is declining. His skills are declining. He doesn't have the power he once had. He hasn't hit a home run since August 10th of last season. It's 175 at bat. That's a career-long homerless drought. So you see all these little pieces of evidence are adding together that he is on the decline. But I don't know if I can say just yet that he's finished or he's done because he does. Again, comparing him to the other second baseman in baseball, he's still among probably the top third, or at least he was last year. So I got to give him a little bit more time, but certainly Ryan Howard's numbers have been way, way, way on the decline over the past few years, and he does not look much better through this first week of the season or in spring training for that matter.
Well, Todd, we'll get to Howard in just a minute, but Utley, obviously, I'm not saying the guy should be benched or get cut or whatever, but when you look at that contract and Howard gets a lot of criticism, do you think that Phillies fans are going to start now becoming more critical of Utley, realizing he's got about, 3 years at $45 million, if I'm right on that, coming to him still?
Well, yeah, a lot of those depend on plate appearances. I think this season he's got to have 500 plate appearances, which honestly, if he's healthy and he plays every day, is a layup. It's almost like not even a vesting option. It's just, he's just going to hit it unless they just decide either he gets hurt or they just bench him, and I don't think they're going to bench him. But yeah, I think you might start seeing a little bit more criticism towards him. I blogged about it today. Just he's off to the worst start of his career through the Phillies' first 7 games, and if you just go through my Twitter feed, you'll find everybody just crushing Ryan Howard and nobody mentioning Chase Utley, and it definitely stands out. And I get some of it, I get some of the reason why. But certainly I think you might start seeing people gripe a little bit more about Chase's production if it doesn't pick up.
We talked about this on this show, Todd, about 2 weeks ago about Utley, and I said, look, the guy's going to make $15 million potentially next year, and in 17 he makes $15 million, and in 18 he's going to make another $15 million with vesting options, as you mentioned. That's a lot of money for a guy who's 36 and is already showing some cracks here. Yet Howard gets completely killed all the time because of the money he makes. And why do you think Utley and Howard are on different planes? Look, Howard has won an MVP. The guy was Rookie of the Year. He has a lot more accomplishments than Chase Utley has. Why do you think there's such a disparity in the way that the fans react to these guys?
I think it's probably a few things. I think number one is Utley's just a pure, from a all-around standpoint, he's just a better baseball player than Ryan Howard is. Ryan Howard is a one-tool player. He's a power hitter that doesn't hit for power, and his decline has been going on for longer than I think Chase's has. Chase was obviously hurt a few years, but when you look at his numbers, he was still among the more productive players, like I mentioned earlier. He was still among the more productive second basemen in the game. So, if you were going to start a team, if you had to pick a player right now and say, all right, who do you want on your team, you would take Chase Utley. So I think that has something to do with it. The fact that he's a better baseball player and has been, he can run the bases. He can hit for average. He's got some speed, that type of thing, whereas Howard can only hit for power, and he hasn't done that. And Howard has the bigger guaranteed contract, which everybody has been talking about for a longer period of time. So I think the fact that Howard's been on the decline for longer, it has kind of got people more angry at Ryan Howard right now than Chase Utley. But, if Chase's play continues to go down in a major way, and he keeps on hitting these triggers in his contract. Like I said, I think it's 500 plate appearances this year. People are going to be going like, oh my gosh, well, are we stuck with this guy for another year? Are we stuck with this guy for another 2 years? I mean, when is this going to end? And then, so I do think at some point you will start hearing a little bit more of it.
Is Utley different from Howard and Rollins in the front office? I mean, we all thought maybe Rollins would be a career Philly. They end up trading him. Do the Phillies look at Utley, though, as a Philly, meaning they don't want to get rid of him? They want him to wear only the red pinstripes?
I don't think so, no. I think if they could trade today for something that they like, they would do it. Now, Chase has to agree to that. He has said he does not want to go anywhere. So I don't think it's a matter of they just like Chase better than Jimmy and Ryan. I really firmly believe if they could get a good deal for Chase Utley today, that they would try very, very hard to convince Chase to go somewhere else and play baseball. I really do. I think they understand that he's not the player he once was. They're not going to be good again while he is here probably, and they would like to get something for him before they can just get nothing for him. And, he ends his career, and you're sitting there going, boy, we just spent $45 million for what over the last 3 years,
Absolutely, and I'm glad to hear that, though. Todd Zolecki's with us. MLB.com covers the Phillies. Let's look at Howard. I'm watching Howard, and I'm seeing teams just say, we don't even need to throw sliders at you anymore. We're going to blow you away with fastballs. Is that apparent, and is that something just timing? Do you think he'll be able to adjust and hit the fastball? Or, are teams just saying, we don't think you can hit anymore. We're just going to throw fastballs. There's no need to use all-speed stuff with you. Your bat's just that slow.
Yeah, I think you're seeing a lot of that where his bat speed does look a lot slower than it has been in the past. You're right. You do see him flailing a lot of fastballs, either inside or just outside the strike zone. And word gets out fast on a hitter and what their weaknesses are. So if you can just go pump fastballs right at him early in the count, you've seen him. I've seen him a lot this season. His at bats. First couple pitches, if it's a fastball, he is swinging at it. It's almost kind of like he does not want to get deep into a count, so he gets to that slider situation, that breaking ball situation, but he's not able to get around on the fastball and do anything with it. So in the end, he's still kind of in that 0-2, 1-2 hole. But it's very apparent that he's not able to get around those pitches right now, and like I said, those scouts, they see this stuff. And the data shows that if you can just get them out with fastballs now. So now you don't even need to mess around with the breaking stuff, and then potentially walk him or potentially put him in a hitter's count.
Todd Zolecki with us, MLB.com, looking at the Phillies just a week in, and obviously those two guys have been here, and they get a lot of the conversation. But let's talk about some of the bright spots because we don't want to be all negative. Aaron Harang has looked good. Obviously, so that could be something that for them around the deadline. But what else has stood out that should give some Philly fans some reason to watch, or some things that that you've noticed that might be on the positive side, Todd?
Well, it's hard to get excited right now because I see what Freddie Galvis has done in his minor league career and what he's done in his major league career. But for the first week of the season, he got 10 hits. He's hitting over 400. Obviously, that will not last. But maybe this guy can be a little bit better than they thought he could be. I said going into the season, if Freddie plays great defense, which he should, if he can hit 230, 240, and I know that doesn't sound like anything, and it's not anything, but I said they would probably be happy and take that. But maybe Freddie can be a guy that hits 270, 275 with 8 to 10 home runs, 25 to 30 RBIs. I tend to doubt it. I still think that those minor league numbers, those career major league numbers don't lie, but certainly that's encouraging. Cody Ashe's gotten a lot of hits so far the first week of the season, no extra base hits, but that's encouraging. Odubel Herrera has shown some flashes of what he has shown over the past, what he showed in spring training, what he showed in winter ball, what he showed last season in Double-A. So, and defensively, he's actually looked a lot better than I thought he would look in center field. So, there are some semi-encouraging signs there. Aaron Harang, I think, as you just mentioned, very encouraging. And you mentioned July, and I think if Aaron Harang continues to pitch like this, and he's not going to pitch as great as he's pitched these first two starts, but say he's got an ERA of around 3.5 come late July, He's only making $5 million this year on a one-year deal. I think there could be some teams that are going after Aaron Harang, and that could mean a nice little pickup for the Phillies in terms of a prospect or two before the trade deadline.
Todd, I want to ask you about Herrera real fast. We had Jason Stark on 2 weeks ago. He said a scout told him that he could win a batting title. That's what people thought of him. Then Keith Law was on with us and said the fact that he is the opening day center fielder is a joke, that this guy has nothing. So you have two various opinions of this guy. Where do you fall on what you've seen from Herrera?
I fall more towards what the scout told Jason Stark, rather than it's a disgrace that he's even on the baseball field. I had a scout tell me that he's like, Herrera might be your second best pure hitter on this team behind Utley. And he's like, and my boss feels the same way. So there are people around baseball that really think that this kid can hit. Now, I don't know if I can't say he's going to win a batting title, but everything I saw in spring training and everything I heard about in winter ball and last season shows that this guy can hit a little bit. Now, is this mean he's going to finish the season hitting 300? I'm not sure, but I tend to think that he's a little bit better than a guy that should not be on the field. Now, I understand what Keith is saying. He has a Rule 5 draft pick, and he's in your opening lineup, and he's sitting second and playing center field. That doesn't really speak that highly of your team. So I get that part of it, but I don't think I don't think that this guy is an embarrassment. Michael Martinez made me crazy that he was on the big league roster because you could tell that this guy had zero hitting ability, but he remained with the Phillies for years. Odubel Herrera can out-hit Michael Martinez. How much remains to be seen, but, Michael Martinez, if he was playing center field for the Phillies on opening day, I would totally agree with Keith, but I think Odubel Herrera is better than that.
Which is interesting because the Phillies had a Rule 5 guy a couple of years ago who they did not hold on to, Ender Inciarte, and he looks like he is actually getting on to he's been pretty good for Arizona out there. So some of these guys do fall through the cracks. You got to be patient. That's the hard part, but the Phillies can afford to be patient this time around.
Absolutely. This year they can because they know they're not going to be any good. And, a couple of years ago, rightly or wrongly, and as it turns out wrongly, they were still in that mode of we think we can win, even though all the evidence was pointing the opposite direction and they were proven wrong. But if they were being a little bit more honest with themselves, they probably would have kept Ender Inciarte on the field, or on the team the entire year. But they were still in that we can win. Once Delman Young comes back, we're not going to be able to keep him, and all this stuff. So they ended up losing him. But yeah, I think if there's ever a time for the Phillies to stick with a Rule 5 guy just to see if he can hit or not, this is the year to do it. And again, if he turns out to be a huge bust, okay, he turns out to be a huge bust. It's not like you were preventing a guy, a super surefire prospect from playing every day because you wanted to give Odubel Herrera a look. You don't have one of those guys right now. So why not play the Rule 5 guy, see if he's any good? If he's good, well, how smart do you look? And if he's terrible, oh, well, what the heck? You weren't going to win. You weren't going to win anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Todd Zolecki, MLB.com. He's at Todd Zolecki on Twitter. What happens when Dom Brown is ready to come back, number one, and when do they anticipate him coming back? Who gets sent down when he comes up?
That is going to be very interesting because they have Grady Sizemore on the bench. They have Jeff Francoeur. They have Darren Ruff. They have a lot of outfielders right now. And I wonder if they might just designate Andres Blanco for assignment and just send him down because Francoeur has some value in the fact that they don't have a lot of right-handed bats. Same thing with Darren Ruff. I think they want to give Darren Ruff a look. They like Grady Sizemore for some reason. I don't really see the allure in him. I don't see why they gave him a $2 million contract. I don't really get it, but some people in the organization like him, so I tend to think he'll stick around. So looking at it right now, I'm thinking maybe they just go with the one infielder, and then if something would happen during a game where they lose an infielder, maybe they call up somebody the next day. But they're going to have to make – it's not an easy decision, I guess, because you don't want to lose Ruff. They like Francoeur a lot in the clubhouse. Somebody up there likes Grady Sizemore. So there's not like an obvious, you know what I mean? There's not an obvious guy where you go, oh, he's definitely gone. Now I say that, and I'm not saying that any of these guys are unbelievable guys that you just can't get rid of. On a good team, the decision is much easier. You just go, oh, Sizemore, get rid of him, or Frank Gore, get rid of him. But they're all kind of the same guy right now.
By the way, the lineup is out tonight. Herrera leading off for the Phillies and playing center field, which obviously Revere has been pushed to the 8 hole tonight. So the Phillies, Ryan Sandberg had said they weren't going to really mess with the lineup. They didn't in the middle of the lineup, but they did at the top of the lineup there. So a couple of quick changes for the Phillies. You said it seems that they don't want to get rid of Ruff. That seems to be a change from the past. It seems like he was like a guy they're not interested in. Are they turning the page on him a bit to give him a chance?
Well, let me put it this way.
He's not in the lineup tonight, by the way.
He's not in the lineup. I think they should give him a chance. I think he's the one guy I think you want to see what he can do. Now, I'm not one of these people that is like, I am just shocked and disgusted that the Phillies don't play Darren Ruff every day. He's not an everyday player in my mind, but I think he could be a productive part-time player. And I say that knowing that there's no teams are calling up the Phillies right now going, hey, man, we'll take Darren Ruff off your hands and make him our everyday left fielder because, we could really use him. So no team in baseball right now has looked at Darren Ruff as an everyday type of hitter. But the Phillies, like I was mentioning the same thing with Odubel Herrera, you have nothing to lose. You have nothing to lose by playing Darren Ruff and just seeing if he can actually do what he has done in the past, which is hit for power on a consistent basis. So, if they would get rid of him, I would just it would make just zero sense. And I think there's enough people in the front office that understand that you got to play this guy a little bit just to see what he can do. And he had 12 at-bats last week. And frankly, I think if he gets 12 at-bats every week, 14 at-bats, that's good. That's over 300 at-bats in a season. And that should be enough work for him to show if he can be a everyday or a regular big league player, a regular part-time player in the big leagues.
By the way, Matt Harvey goes tonight for the Mets, and he has been dominant against the Phillies in his starts, 4-0 lifetime with an ERA right around 1, so it should be another quick night at Citi Field. Dave Buchanan goes for the Phils. But Dave Buchanan, a young guy pitching, I know you're not at Reading, but that young staff, which has got a lot of hype around it, how did they fare in their first week?
They did okay. They did okay, all things considered. But that, I think, we're going to want to see those guys get into it a little bit more. But that will be a fun rotation to watch. If you're a Phillies fan, you're like, I have zero interest in this team right now. Just kind of get online and see what these guys do. Aaron Nola, Zach Eflin, Tom Windle, Ben Lively, Jesse Biddle, 5 guys that they think legitimately could be starting pitchers in the big leagues in the future. I don't know if they're all not going to get there. It never seems to work out that way, but there's a couple guys in there that have a lot of potential. So, Aaron Nola is a guy, and Jesse Biddle is a guy that I think if they pitch really well in Double-A, they'll get promoted fairly quickly, go up to Triple-A, and it would not surprise me if either of those guys were in the big leagues before the end of the season.
Let's just hope they don't turn out to be Bill Pulsifer, Jason Isringhausen, and Paul Wilson, the Generation
exactly.
Generation K of the New York Mets 1995. All right, Todd Zolecki, MLB.com with the Phillies in New York tonight. Should be fun to watch. Harvey anyway, and probably a quick night for you and the guys covering that game. Thanks, Todd.
Thanks.